an entrepreneurial mindset is a very curious mind. It's always asking questions about what are the problems that are existing, what do people need, how can I make things easier, how can I improve things.
G'day podcast tribe, Gerald Hubert here on the Unlock Your Growth podcast. This is the podcast that helps you to unlock your growth and to become the person that you have been made to be. Now today, as you can see, for those of you who are watching the podcast, we are not 2 people, but 3 people in the studio. And we had to do a lot of adjustments to make this work. We need to do some strategizing around this. But as always, today I have with me in the studio our co-host Christian Nyambui. Welcome.
Bonjour, Pastor Jabu, bonjour, Pastor Gerald. I'm the only one who's not a pastor.
Bonjour.
Here.
And then, of course, we have with us in the studio our very special guest today, Pastor Jabu Zwane. He is a mindset development specialist, and he's also a father. He's an amazing cook. He's a speaker. He's an entrepreneur, and he helps executives and companies and organizations to grow through mindset development. And he focuses on leadership training, communication skills development, and he also speaks on emotional intelligence. And there are many more things that you'll discover about him that he can do and talk about and help you with. He's a man of many talents, but let him speak for himself. So welcome, Pastor Jabu.
Well, thank you so much for having me at your podcast, guys, and to your audience out there. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world.
Depending on where you are, yes. Awesome. So, how's your week been, guys? Have you had a good week so far? How's business? How's life going? Maybe our guest can tell us first how you're doing.
I'm doing.
You're doing busy.
No, I'm doing okay actually. I thought it was going to be a very hectic week, but the life of an entrepreneur, I had 2 cancellations for 2 days, so then the week became slower than expected, which kind of gets a bit confusing because then it's a disruption. Kind of throws your plans out the window a little bit, but other than that, all right. Yeah,
I think having a week that's less busy can be disappointing, but it's always nice. Having a week that's more busy than you expected is problematic always, because you're running around like a crazy chicken. So, but how are you doing, Christian?
I'm doing well. So I've been a little bit quiet, but I'm fine, and I'm very happy to be here with Pastor Jabu and Pastor Gerald. You know, 2 mentors and big people. Yeah, entrepreneurs. It's always a privilege for me and all of us, the tribe. You know.
Awesome. So today we have a really important topic that we're going to talk about. Mostly Pastor Jabu is going to talk about, and we're going to be discussing cultivating an entrepreneurial mindset. And we're going to talk about and learn about what this is, because it seems like a very big term, how to cultivate this kind of mindset and why it is very important. And I know there's going to be some really, really cool stories coming out of this, so please stay tuned and continue to listen. And after the podcast, be sure to reach out to us and tell us what you learned, and remember to share whatsoever you've heard today with your friends and colleagues, maybe even your enemies. Who knows? It might benefit you. All right, so Pastor Jabu, today talking about cultivating an entrepreneurial mindset. I think maybe the important place to start is with understanding what makes this kind of mindset unique, and then what does it mean to have an entrepreneurial mindset? Is that different from being business oriented? Is that different from having good ideas or being somebody that wants to make a lot of money? What makes that a unique mindset? And maybe you can just get into a little bit in why you think that's important.
Yeah, and I think the first thing is definitions. Definitions are important. First of all, mindsets. Let's start over there. It's not just about a way of thinking, but it's also about understanding the different categories that build the way you think. So you got to think about two things actually when you think about mindset. The first one is about premise, and premise is the position. It is the position from which you see, things. That position, how you got to see things the way you've seen them. So if you think about a premise, then it's also a structure. It's about a structure. So something has built the way you think. So there's a way of thinking about entrepreneurship. And then the second one is about perspective, which is then how you... One is about where you are, and the other one is about how. How do you see things? So there's a position that the entrepreneur takes, which also then enables them to see life a certain way. That's important. So if you think about then the categories of thinking that build a way or a structure of filtering, of processing life as an entrepreneur. Now, the other thing is about understanding what an entrepreneur is. An entrepreneur is, they are involved in business, but entrepreneurs are more into solving problems for income. They look at the life and they're thinking, what problems are there in the world? What solutions are there? What are people struggling with? What can make people's lives easier? And how can they be contributors, to that? So that's different from being in business. A business person, for example, can be in a business that an entrepreneur has already started, and then they're there for their skills. They're there as an accountant. They're there as a CEO. They're there as an advisor, as a consultant. They could be servicing an already existing business and not necessarily coming up with any new solutions. And so the vital thing to understand about an entrepreneur is that they're actively involved in the space of solving a problem, and that problem they're going to come up with, the solution they're going to come up with is how they're going to generate an income. So that's vital to, I think, for me, that's a crucial distinction to make.
No, that's really good. I mean, I love what you mentioned about mindset, because I think many times we think about mindsets and we only think about them as a way of thinking, like, oh, okay, I think a certain way. But I love what you said about it's actually also a structure of thinking. Like it's the way you frame your mindset, is the way that you structure everything that you do. And if you are an entrepreneur then, and you have this specific structure that you build everything around, then it means that you are focused on different things than the normal person. The way you look at life is completely different. Then, right? So that would make it easy then for a person that is an entrepreneur to see opportunities where there is gaps. So what is it then that needs to be cultivated, or what needs to be changed to have an entrepreneurial mindset? How do you get to that place where you can grow an entrepreneurial mindset, and what does that look like? If you have one, how do you know you have one?
I mean, I think, as we said, there's a way of thinking because of the way you're seeing the way life is. And an entrepreneur takes all the risk. When they decide to start a business, all the risk, financial risk, operational risk, emotional risk, spiritual risk for those people who believe like myself. So a relationship risk, whatever it is that is part of your life is literally on the line. Versus, for example, a business person who works for a company, if the company shuts down, and then they can go on to the next company and go find another work, or a consultant. So cultivating an entrepreneurial mindset is like, it's... There's a study that was actually done when they looked at some of your top entrepreneurs in the world, the Elon Musks of this world, the Bill Gates, these guys that started your Airbnbs and serial entrepreneurs that are always starting up things and selling companies, you realize that it's actually a way of living. They don't just start a business and then settle there. Once the business has been started, once it's running, once it's up and then they move on to the next thing. So they don't get complacent. Entrepreneurs don't get complacent. They're not just starting a business for the sake of surviving. If you're starting a business for the sake of surviving because you're trying to make money, you're thinking more as a survivalist, we can say entrepreneur, but actually probably more as an employee, more as a business person, more than you are actually an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is thinking about, how am I going to solve this problem? How can I generate an income out of it? And how can I maximize on it? And then it's almost like, what else? What else is out there for me? So an entrepreneurial mindset is a very curious mind. It's always asking questions about what are the problems that are existing? What do people need? How can I make things easier? How can I improve things? That's why you see a lot of entrepreneurs are in the tech space. They're in the innovation space. They're in the invention space. You see them a lot also in terms of, whatever new thing whatever new solution. Think about a property entrepreneur. A property entrepreneur is not just going to buy 5 properties for investments and then, now I'm getting 100,000 Rand or I'm getting whatever, 20,000 Rand. That's fine. A property entrepreneur will keep on buying and keep on buying and keep on looking at different portfolios, keep on looking at diversifying their bouquet of entrepreneurial activity, to diversify. And then they probably will start off by buying that, and then they're offering services to that, and then they're connecting that. There's collaboration. So having a curious mind and constantly asking, how do I improve? What else is out there? Because if you don't do that, you don't adapt, somebody's going to catch up with you. And then in no time at all, you're out of the game.
That's interesting. So I'm just thinking, and then the next question and comments going to be Christian. So I have this question in my mind. So if an entrepreneur is a very, we can say like a niche term, right? It's you mentioned that it's not just a business person, or it's not just somebody that's doing business because they have to do it, but it's because they have this maybe desire and need within them to look for gaps in the market, or look for lacks where there's a lack, or where there's a need, where there's pains that are unsolved, which we can call them gaps. So so let's say, for example, let me say I started a company because I had to start a company. I had to do this, right? I'm using, let's hypothetically speaking, I started this company because I had to do it. I lost my job and I began something and it's going well. So by definition, I would not be an entrepreneur. I would just be a business person.
Yeah.
Right. So how would you say this cultivating an entrepreneurial mindset can then apply to a person like that, where I'm not by definition an entrepreneur, but then how do I change that, or why, or should I even change that, right? Is it necessary for me to think differently? And if yes, then how do I do that? And why do you think it's important to make that shift from just thinking business and actually then working on cultivating a mindset that's more focused towards entrepreneurial mindset?
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. I like that, because again, a business is about mainly maintaining and managing what's already existing, and making sure, for example, at very best, perhaps it still grows, and you're not necessarily worried about its extinction. So you kind of like making sure that you're sustaining and that you're managing. But without the entrepreneurial mindset, you don't think about the future. You don't think about the long-term threats against the business. So in terms of the external threats, there's your competition, your threat. If your competition is always thinking about the best ways to improve and to offer better service and to offer more innovative, more exciting products, they can take you out of business. So an entrepreneur is always thinking about what can take me out of business and what do I need to do? What else? What's the new thing that I can do? And how they do that also, then they look at, as you've said, even with the product offering that I currently have, what are the pain points, right? There was a problem, for example, before where we didn't have those takeaway cups. Somebody thought, my goodness, I want to take coffee and get out. So then let's make up those takeaway cups. And then there was, okay, well, we have those takeaway cups now, but the thing is, the brim is too wide, so we got to close it up so that at least people don't get burned if they're drinking coffee. If you're not thinking that way, somebody's going to come up with a new product and then you're out. There was a time of cell phones and people were complaining about the cell phones, but now it's like, okay, well, let's go make them smaller. But then realize, oh my goodness, if we make them smaller, well, people have to work on their cell phones. So that's why we're back on the big screens again, because now they're doubling up as computers again. All right, now they're doubling up as computers. They're now doubling up as cameras. We know what happened in Nokia, right? They didn't embrace the issue of camera so much. What happened? Companies that embraced the issue of making the cameras and making the phone more multifunctional, like Samsung and Apple, they kicked them out of the market. If you ask young people now about Nokia, they don't even know what Nokia is. Nokia what? So you are constantly thinking about in the environment, even as I'm offering the product, what else can I do to improve? What else that is new? What are my competitors doing? One of the reasons why I like to travel to the USA is because I understand that as an advanced world market, there are some things that there's a high level of activity, entrepreneurially. If you go to New York, if you go to LA, if you go to many different parts, if you go to USA, for example, in some of the stores, they got fully functioning robots that are cleaning the store. Like as you're traveling, as you're walking on the aisles, there's this massive robot, taller than, not that tall, but taller than me. And literally it can sense your proximity and it'll go around you. And then it turns around when it hits a wall. And then like literally nobody's managing that. A couple of years ago, about 5-7 years ago, they already had fully functioning stores where you didn't need to use the till. So you go to the cashier, you could just run everything yourself. South Africa Pick and Pay, I think, started about 2-3 years ago. That was already existing back there. So to cultivate that entrepreneurial mindset, be aware of the global trends, be aware of what's going on in your environment. Listen to what your customers are saying, complaining about all the time, because those are entrepreneurial opportunities. So a big part about entrepreneurial mindset is about understanding a diversity of opportunity. Also, it requires a diversity of products. Diversity of problems offer an opportunity offers diversity of opportunities. Also offers a diversity for an opportunity for diverse product offering. But a business person, like we had with Ford at some point, Henry Ford was like, well, you can have any color for your car as long as it's black. And then GM Motors happened. His right hand man left and we started the GM Motors and it almost became the end of Ford. Thankfully they bounced back. So an entrepreneur doesn't rest.
Very good. Yeah, it's a very good thought. So you are talking about entrepreneur mindset. Where is like this morning I was reading somewhere about the risk in the innovation and change of the world. So what with your explanation is what differentiates an entrepreneur and a businessman? Is it the risk of trying to go far? Because as we explained, we said a businessman is a person who has the business and then try to maintain the business. But an entrepreneur will go out and try to see what's happening, how to improve, what to add, how can change things, how to adapt with the world, like the technology coming, all these things coming. Is it that risk mindset. I don't know if I have to call it a risk mindset that differentiates them, or even a businessman is taking risk, but it's just more conservative and things.
Yeah, I mean, a big thing about an entrepreneur is, of course, risk. All risk is on the entrepreneur. And that's why a lot of entrepreneurs, like the Elon Musks, they'll talk about that failure ratio, that you must be aware that out of maybe every 5 ideas you've got as an entrepreneur, one of them is going to be an epic failure, or even 2 of them are going to be an epic failure. So a risk element is always there. An entrepreneur is aware of that. And that's why a big part of the entrepreneurial mindset is, fail as quickly as you possibly can and move on. Elon Musk speaks about that, like you got to fail fast. All right. And a businessman, for example, would continue and they would hold on to an idea and trying to maintain something that's dying, because it's more about management, it's more about maintenance, it's more about keeping things safe and more risk averse. But an entrepreneur doesn't have time. They'll try out an idea quickly and then it fails. Try out an idea quickly and then it fails. Try out an idea quickly and it fails. I can think of myself. I mean, how many businesses I've tried in my life. I've had a boutique that took too long for me to get out. And I lost more than R500,000. My wife and I lost more than R500,000 on that one. I've tried different ideas, from network marketing ideas to trying to start up an online business. And, if it doesn't work, let go. You'd rather lose the 10,000, 20,000 rand because you can see that it doesn't work. So try and fail fast. Test your product very quickly. If it doesn't work, move on. So risk is an important part of that, but you don't want to be so you have such a high risk appetite that you begin to lose wisdom. And a big part of that is that you got to fail fast and have a ratio and understand whatever industry I'm going into right now. If it's a new industry, obviously it's a bit difficult, but if it's an existing industry, learn from other people and see what they've done. You don't have to start a whole new thing altogether. And maybe we can talk about, what are some of the sort of the mindset issues that make it difficult for to cultivate an entrepreneur, or at least to operate even as an entrepreneur. I don't know if that's
maybe you can just continue with that idea. As you said, we can talk about different things that block the entrepreneurial mindset. Because it's in the nature of women are nature. Most of the time we try to block things. We don't want to change. We don't want to change. Changing it's not nice. So what makes us to not to change, and what can we do for us to change? What takes for us to change? I don't know if
I think one of the number one inhibitors of entrepreneurship is ego. Ego. A lot of the great entrepreneurs, one of the reasons why some of the businesses fail is because they have a big ego. You think your idea is the most amazing idea and you insist that it is the most amazing idea, even though the environment is telling you that, hey, you need to change, right? And then, of course, the overbearing sometimes that need for control. You want to control everything because you think that you are the best person in the world that knows better than anybody else. Now, what you're going to learn about, let's talk about the PayPal team that Elon Musk and them had. There were 18 of them. 18 of them with diverse skills. And one of the things that a lot of great entrepreneurs will tell you is that you must have people with opposing views in the room. People that can challenge you in the room. If you have an ego, you have a problem with people challenging you because you think your idea is the purest idea and is the best idea. And then you limit your ability to innovate, to come up with new products that are needed in the market only to you. But the thing is that you're one person in a massive world, right? So ego is a big problem. And of course, the issue of distrust, of course, because you're taking the risk and you're putting in the money, it's your idea. Sometimes you're so afraid of the ideas being stolen. Then we don't share with the team. You got a team, but you don't share with the team what you're thinking. So you're limiting everything to yourself. Is there a risk of the idea being stolen? Absolutely. Right? But oftentimes you are the one with the idea, so you probably are the best person to execute the idea anyway. So if you have a team, it's important that you be transparent and tell the guys, don't be so consumed with your ego. And then, of course, you overdriving yourself for success. Entrepreneurship is a journey, so it's a process. Once you have that right product, it needs time, right? One of the companies I'm currently involved with now is a property tech startup company that has been ongoing now for the last 3 years. Put in millions and millions into the business. It's only now in the third year that you're beginning to see the benefits of that. The idea was tested out. The idea was proven. It was very clear that the idea can work. But to gather sometimes all the data and then to really improve on, let's talk about the tech platform that we're currently developing. You need to that takes time. Because some of the ideas you've got in terms of the product you're developing don't even exist as yet. So it means that you might have to go acquire new skills. But now if you have this overriding desire for success, you can drive your business into the ground because you are not patient. And then, of course, that unrealistic optimism as well, which is basically, you're thinking, well, I'm starting my entrepreneurial journey today. I'm leaving my job. I'm going to use my pension money or my retirement savings to start a business. Like I did with my business, I didn't anticipate the fact that if you're starting out a fashion company, the product is seasonal. If you're starting out the business in winter, and if you don't sell the stock in winter, you're going to get rid of it with a much lesser price in summer. That's what happened with my business. So if you didn't sell the stuff in winter, I realized, oh my goodness, all the money is held in these winter clothes. I got to put them on sale, but now when I'm putting them on sale, even though I'm selling higher volume, I still got to pay rent, I still got to pay the salary of the employees, and now I've got less money to buy the new trendy, fashionable stuff, and people are coming to the company now, into the business now. I don't have enough stock, and they're asking for this, and I'm selling. I don't have it. Oh, you don't have it. Like then, so if you have that unrealistic optimism, you're thinking people are going to buy into your most amazing idea. And sometimes people take longer to warm up to the idea. Think about blockchain, for example. It's taking up now. It's up and down, but it hasn't been around long enough for us to be able to form solid ideas about how long it's going to last. A lot of us are fearful that if you don't step into it, and then it really takes off, that you would have missed out. And that's possibly very true. But those that are involved in the industry, in the business, they are making money, losing money, making money, losing money. And that's why entrepreneurs have that. They apply themselves in multiple domains, solving multiple problems, failing fast. And so you cannot do that if you have an ego, if you have an overbearing need for control, if you are mistrusting people, and you're thinking that you are the only person in the world that can come up with ideas.
I also see like a fine balance between knowing how long to stay on the ship, because you can either abandon ship too quick, like you were saying now, that you can say, well, this is not, I'm not getting the money now, so you abandon ship, which has a lot to do with bad planning and bad strategy. We spoke about that in the previous podcasts, about how that Amazon, for example, had planned and projected for almost, I think it was a 10-year loss in their first 10 years of after starting up. They actually budgeted for a 10-year loss, so they knew, like you were saying, they understood that it's going to take time for this company to turn profit. And if we wait long enough and we invest enough time into this and develop the product enough, that it will turn a profit. So, but then you have that risk of not planning it properly, and so you don't see when, how long you need to wait, and then you jump ship too early and you lose out. Like many people who gave up on Bitcoin, for example, before, some people bought like $1,000 worth of Bitcoin when it was worth like maybe $1 per Bitcoin or something. And they were like, nah, this is nothing. And the story of the pizza guy.
10,000.
They bought pizza with Bitcoin and he was like, nah, this is nothing. And then literally 10 years later, it's worth millions of dollars. And it's like, oh my word. So I think, it's like having that the right kind of mindset to know how long you should hold on to something. And like you said, not being so proud, so egocentric that you don't want to see the problems. You don't want to see when it doesn't work so that you can adapt and adjust. And then on the other side, just being so optimistic that you overestimate your ability to do something. And that's why I think like you said, it's so important that you have a diverse team, and you have maybe it's not just, maybe it might not even be people that's necessarily on your company directly, but it can be people that you can be mentored by, or that can give you advice, business advice, and they can help you to have the right mindset. I think for most of us, the fear of the risks that we are taking is a big problem.
It's a huge problem.
And that's why we either hold on so tightly onto an idea and then it just, we go down with the ship, or we jump ship before, it even takes off, and we miss the train because we were afraid that it's going to crash, but then it takes off and and you are left behind. So I think that fear factor is something that within the entrepreneurial mindset is something that we have to learn to control, to manage that fear.
Look, I mean, anxiety obviously is an important part of actually commanding our intelligence, right? Fear commands our intelligence to come to the fore. What does it do? It actually is supposed to prompt us to be more aware of what we need to look out for in terms of the dangers. Now, how do you know whether you're an idea for long and not for long? I think that's something that we need to talk about. Now, one of the reasons why an idea doesn't work is because, let's say, for example, maybe there's no demand for it, but you insist that there should be. I can think about some of the most incredible artists. There's one particular client of mine that told me about a story of an artist friend that they have who insists that he's so brilliant. The only reason why he's not good is because people don't see how brilliant he is. And then he's sticking with an idea of a type of artistry because of an ego, because he thinks that people don't see it. And now he thinks by insisting and sort of rebelling against the people, then it's going to work. Like, okay, if there's no demand for a product, then you let it go. If the market is not ready for the product, maybe you put it on the side. How do you know it's not ready for the product? When you're selling it for a certain amount of money in terms of how much money you put into each product, but you see people are not willing to pay for that, either have to make adjustments to the product, or at least maybe park the product until perhaps the market is ready for it. Maybe you didn't prepare the market for it, and you didn't market it long enough, then let it go. Okay? So those are some of the factors. And then it could just be an unnecessary product. Like you've done an incredibly amazing product, but nobody needs it. No one needs the product. Like, right now in terms of the cameras, some of the reasons why these high-end cameras they sell to the people that they're aimed at. And those are people that are photographers, that are interested in photography. But imagine now trying to create an affordable camera for everyone. Well, not with these things. That's not a very helpful product. Nobody's going to buy that camera and spend extra money for that, because they can take really good photos with their phones. So imagine if somebody decided to come up with an incredibly high performance camera, and then to compete against the cell phones. It's gonna be a risky one. So, and then on the other hand, it's about, okay, once I've proven the product and I see the need, why do we stay longer in it? Maybe I don't have enough capacity. All right. Give an example with the businesses that I'm involved with right now. One of the reasons why we could not scale up was because the infrastructure wasn't there. The demand was there. The queries were coming in, but the infrastructure wasn't there. With the business that I had when I was, in the mall running that boutique, the demand for the products were there. The reason why I stuck out with it and I ended up losing that much money wasn't so much because of a poor demand on the product, but it was more on the fact that I didn't have financial capacity. I didn't get the capital injection that I needed to actually scale up the business. Cash flow was a problem. It can be issue of cash flow, that's resources, can be the issue of knowledge. Do you have the expertise to run the idea and to build the idea, to develop the business to the point where you can, you can service the clientele? Do you have the infrastructure? Do you have the, do you have the client base? If those things are there, if you've got, if you're the reasons why your business is not doing well is capital, it is knowledge and skills and competencies, and there's a demand for it, there's clientele for it, or maybe it's the factor of infrastructure, perhaps you scale down the business, grow the business slowly, and as the business is growing, that's going to take longer. Hence, then you'll have that 10-year plan like Amazon had. Or like in my case with my current speaking and training business, I realized, okay, I'm going to have to really slow down in terms of exposing myself even to different environments until I'm ready. Because if you then get too much orders for your business, then you're risking your reputation. Because then you're accepting something that you cannot do. And then who knows, maybe you've done that with a very important client, then who starts to spread the word, and then you are out before you are in. So is there demand for a product? If there's a demand for a product, is the reason why you're not growing? Is it lack of infrastructure? Is it lack of capital? Is it lack of skill? And if it's those three things, lack of skill and infrastructure, can I get investors? All right. How do I communicate that? What is going to be my value proposition to an investor? Right. You shared with me earlier some time ago about somebody who had interested in investing in their business, but they're complaining about what the investor wants, right? But the thing is that have you thought about those kind of things? If I'm going to go out into the market and look for investment, what am I willing to part with my business? How do I support that? How do I negotiate that to make sure that I don't lose out at the table of negotiation? So it can't just be, I need 1 million rand. Well, if you need 1 million rand, what are you willing to part with? Because nobody's going to put 1 million rand into your company if they're not going to get out of it what they think will be worth the risk that they're taking. So that's the distinction. Do you have your hand on the pulse of the clientele, of the market? What are they saying they want? What are they saying they don't want? What are they saying they're willing to pay? And if you want to sell it for more, what is it that you need to do to package it and to make it look like it is worth the money that you are saying that it's worth? Okay. On the other hand, if it's some issues are solvable, and if you can, capital issue is time, resource issue is time, infrastructure issue is time, if the demand is there. So those things can determine whether you stay long or you get out.
Very good.
I'm sorry to take.
No, go for it.
If I understand the way you just explained, it's like an entrepreneur is someone who at the first observe. The observation is the first skill that an entrepreneur develop, like to see the market, to observe yourself. Do I have the skill? Do I have the capacity? And then what about investors? And that comes with the strategy around your idea. Because you can have a great idea, but you don't know how to execute that idea. And then beside that, the competition. So you observe in the story of Elon Musk. I saw one of I was reading or watching a video somewhere how he started SpaceX. First, he started himself to learn about how those
those rockets.
He went to big people, invested in himself first to learn to understand how it works. And then from there, now he started to build around and then bring people inside, and then he put it money. And actually what the it was I think 4 or 5 first things that they sent in the space failed.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
And then, but they were about to give up. And then after they sent the other one, it was okay. That's where NASA came to the government and invested in the thing. But they knew their game. They studied the market. What happened is like that space, that market, most of the time companies, when they have to partner with the government, they give them 10%. But X-Space said, no, I don't want those 10%. I'm going to give you, like, for example, I want 1 million. No 10% or what? No, I want 1 million. You want to work with me? Yes. You don't want to work with me? Until they saw the way they prepared themselves, the way they were ready with the things, and then the work they put in, the government agreed with that. And then the technology that they bring, they're the one who bring more innovation in that space. But that comes with more risk. There's even people who died in some of their things. So entrepreneurship come with a lot of risk inside there. Is it the reason why most people fail?
Risk is not why we fail. How we handle risk is is the reason why we fail. Risk is everywhere. It's not the reason why we fail as people. As I mentioned, ego can be a big part of that. A lack of skill can be a big part of that. Being over-optimistic is a big part of that. Not having the right way to measure the risk and miscalculating the risk is a big part of that. I think another thing about entrepreneurship that is really, really vital is also, as we talked about, collaboration. So if you're going to collaborate, it's also important to know how to communicate. It's one thing to collaborate but not be able to communicate. And then if you're going to collaborate also, you have to be open to compromise and be open to other people's ideas, right? And then the other thing about collaboration is that also it needs courage. Sometimes I have to trust my team. If the people that are supposedly more experienced than I am, if they come up with ideas that I don't fully quite understand, I have to allow them to run with the ideas and ask myself, how can I be able to support? And that was happening. That's what happened with SpaceX, for example. So what else is there? One of the reasons why also we don't succeed is consistency. If you're not consistency isn't necessarily so much about how long, but it's about how often you do something, and how well do you do something that how many times do you achieve the same standard. And some people try something once, and then once it fails, and they decide, nope, it's not going to work. I'm done with this thing. Sometimes if your idea is in the process of purification, it's in the process of forming, and you're still getting better at it, you have to allow for failure, because failure is an important part of improving. The only thing is that if you don't know your own process as an entrepreneur, and you're just like applying yourself on multiple domains, and you're trying to you're a jack of all trades and master of absolutely nothing, at some point, everybody around you starts thinking, this guy is a waste of time. It's going to waste your money because he's going to apply himself on too many different things. If you look at all these guys, as much as they tried different ideas, but they were all in the same, in the same industry or in the same discipline. So focus on one idea, try it in different ways until it's completely succeed. The reputation you're going to build in that industry is going to help you to build your own credibility as an entrepreneur. And then if you're a credible entrepreneur and you start any idea, people are going to put money into your business because they've seen you do it. From SpaceX, from PayPal to SpaceX to Tesla. All right. I mean, if you look at a lot of these guys, they didn't succeed just in one thing. So build reputation in one thing and be very good at it, and that makes you credible. And once you've got that credibility, then it's easier to then have people come and be with you wherever you are and support whatever idea you have.
One last question: is that skill the entrepreneurship entrepreneurial mindset is something that you can born with.
No.
You can be born with, or you can develop.
No, I mean, we're not born with anything. We develop the skill. It's the same way also with leadership. You may have certain character traits which make it easier for you to become an entrepreneur, but your natural talent itself at some point is not enough to meet the demands of whatever it is that you're going to do. If you think about professional athletes, for example, there's a point where the natural talent, brings them before the scouts, but it is the ability to develop their skills in a professional setting that makes them professional. If they don't become professional, no matter how skilled they are, they won't make it. They get kicked out. Simple as that. And similarly, you may have certain natural traits. Maybe you're a curious person naturally. Maybe you are a resilient person naturally. Maybe you are a person that is very good with people naturally. All of those traits, they're very helpful to you as an entrepreneur. But if you don't develop the necessary skills to become more structured as an entrepreneur, then it becomes very difficult for you to succeed, no matter how amazing your ideas may be.
It's like the old saying that says, hard work always beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
Oh, wow. That's a good one.
Like if you don't put in the work, even if you're talented, it's not going to progress.
Absolutely.
It can only take you that far. Like talent gives you, or, like you mentioned, you can have certain maybe traits and talents. They give you a little bit of a head start, but if you don't work on them, they're not going to take you far. So like maybe, just a quick question. How can, maybe two, let's just focus on two things. Can you give two places or sources where our listeners that you think is a good place or a good source for them to go to develop an entrepreneurial mindset, to develop and then to cultivate that mindset?
Well, I mean, one of the greatest platforms is TED Talks. If you go to www.ted.com or tedtalks.com, and you just put in entrepreneurial mindset, there are incredible, successful people there that give valuable information about how to cultivate, the mindset. And then another thing, of course, is, whatever, let's say that you want to start a business in, talk about speaking, for example, build a category for that industry. Search, how do I become a speaker? How do I become a good communicator? What are the professional bodies that are out there that I can that I can join? What sort of skills do I need to upskill myself in? We talked about mindsets. Mindset are categories of thinking that lead to an outcome. And the categories of thinking are built through consumption of knowledge, experience, exposure to different things that give you that framework of awareness so that you can be able to see and note what you need to note as an entrepreneur in that particular space. Because without awareness, then you'll miss different things. So one of the ways that you build that entrepreneurial awareness is you have to build an entrepreneurial awareness in the discipline or in the industry or whatever sector or market that you want to operate in. And so then have an education specific, a development specific strategy to build that knowledge so that you can become really skilled and be able to know, to understand the language, understand the dynamics of complexity, understand the players, understand the market. Because one of the things, for example, let's say, you start a business, but because you don't understand that people are very distance sensitive to buying a product. Let's talk about a gym, for example. If a gym is placed somewhere 30 kilometers away from the residence, that's not going to survive. Because gym is a very distance sensitive business. It's a proven factor that people don't always have motivation to get out of their homes to go drive for 20 30 Ks to go to a gym. That's why if a gym is placed very close to the residence, then that gym is gonna do well. If it's not, you're in trouble.
Sometimes that doesn't even help me, my gym is like 1 kilometer away. I still struggle. Okay, well, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And then Can you maybe tell the listeners where they can get a hold of you if they want to find out more or read up a little bit more on what you do? Where can they go for that?
All right, on LinkedIn, Jabu Zwane, it's my name. So if you just search for Jabu Zwane on LinkedIn, Mindset, that should bring up my profile. I'm also on Facebook, and I do have a channel also on YouTube, which is Jabulani Zwane. But if you Google Jabu Zwane Mindset, it'll literally give you all the platforms that I'm on. My website is www.jabuzwane.co.za, or if you look for mindsetdevelopmentinstitute.com, that's my other website where you can be able to get a hold and connect with me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much, Pastor Jabu. It's been an awesome talk. I feel like we've only scratched the surface here. It's like it's been almost an hour, and I feel like we haven't really even gone really deep into this. So I think we'll definitely arrange another podcast together soon. But thank you so much for joining us here today, and thank you for sharing your wisdom and knowledge with us.
Well, it's been a great pleasure being here with you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. So thank you for all our listeners and those watching, mostly to my back. Thank you so much for being here today. Join us again next week for our next podcast, and be sure to leave a comment. You can also, if you have any questions, you can email us at info@oxano7.com. and we'll be able to answer your questions and so on. And please be sure to go over to Pastor Jabu's LinkedIn profile, connect with him, send him a message, and share this podcast with also your friends and colleagues and so on. So, and to our co-host, thank you so much, Christian, for being here as well.